A quiet night, a gravel driveway, and a man left lying in the dark. A passing voice breaks the silence, "He's okay," but something about it doesn't sit right. By morning, the woods reveal the truth. A body, a single gunshot to the back of the head. No shoes. No identity. No answers. What happened in those final moments? Who brought him there, and why did they leave him? At first, it looks like a mystery with no beginning. But as the pieces come together, a darker truth emerges. Because this wasn't random. It was planned.
So last night we were having dinner and we heard a car in our driveway running.
Last night?
Yes.
What time?
Oh, it was about 8:30 at night.
Did you look out and see the car?
Yeah.
What color was the car?
It was dark. A lady was driving, but I think there was a man with her. There was a man lying on the ground, face up. He was alive. And she said, "He's okay, we're gonna get him back in the car." And so I felt like, who is this? What's he doing on the ground?
On the morning of August 12, 2020, we received a 911 call about a motionless black male laying near a private driveway by the woods. When we arrived on the scene, the first thing we do is activate all our body cameras and begin to survey the scene.
For 332, can I go to C. Charles?
Preserve evidence by having EMS come in there with just one officer, and then a lead detective will come in and then take over the investigation.
Blood on the concrete, tire marks. Doesn't look like he's got any kind of ID on him, but he's got some distinct tats.
Anytime we get dispatched to a scene like this, we don't know who the individual is, what occurred during it, and everything that led to that moment is a mystery.
It was pretty unsettling to not know exactly who this was at that moment in time, a true John Doe.
What's it look like?
There's facial trauma, I don't know. Yeah.
I was wondering how he had ended up in the middle of the woods in this particular neighborhood. There was no car there. The body had been discarded in the woods. The obvious signs of the trauma was a gunshot wound to the back of the head. Believed it was a much smaller caliber, possibly a .22. He had been murdered, dumped, and then the vehicle that he had arrived in left.
Hey, let's avoid this area right here where impressions can be made.
It's tough seeing a murder victim because it's someone's life that was taken. This person probably has a family and nobody asked to be murdered. Whenever something like that happens, you kind of have to focus on the task at hand and kind of bury those emotions down. That way you can focus and get justice for this individual's family. Because it's like a puzzle.
Shooting is way up the road.
I know, but
no shoes?
He's got major trauma to the left side of his face.
No shoes?
So the one bizarre thing about it was that this gentleman looked like he had gone to the gym or was going to the gym, just had forgotten to wear his shoes. He was wearing a light gray tank top and some athletic shorts, and the athletic socks that he had were kind of partially pulled off of his feet.
No shoes. It's weird.
Yeah.
When someone is missing shoes, that tells me that either they just left without shoes on or someone has taken their shoes to cover up evidence. So I would put that in the very suspicious category. That's not normal.
Going uphill, or you think he's coming down a road, landed like that?
I think he looks like he was dumped.
My initial assessment was that he had been dumped there. Did not appear that he would have walked there without shoes and just randomly died in the woods. So in the very beginning, the biggest mystery was to try and determine who this gentleman was, to identify him, and then to find out who would have wanted to have murdered him. I called the investigator with the state police and requested he bring a mobile AFIS machine. And essentially what a mobile AFIS machine is you can take the fingerprint of anybody, deceased or living, and if they have any sort of criminal history, it will bring up their criminal history based on their fingerprints.
You guys know it's on the corner?
Yes.
Okay.
After the mobile AFIS unit was used on the deceased, it came back to a black male by the name of Mario Miller.
Not only was he a man of integrity, but he was I was most definitely a daddy's girl. pretty much stuck to him. I never got in trouble. I was a good noodle, a good student, because I didn't want to have conversations with him where he had to use that more firm tone in his voice. So schooling was very important to him. It was in the middle of the day. I got a phone call from my dad's girlfriend, and she was crying, and trying to like talk, but she couldn't really get her words out. And then she kind of says, like, the detective is gonna call you. The detective called, and he just was like, we found your dad deceased. It was a brain fog because of the how and the who and not knowing who, and it just being this like mysterious homicide.
I'm not sure if the tire tracks are important right now. I would think they would be. There's some blood on the edge of the driveway.
The victim was laying in the woods, so that whole area of the woods around where he was laying had to be combed for evidence. The driveway itself, there was a specific set of tire tracks that led up and ended about where the body was laying, and specifically there was also 2 tire spin marks in the middle of the driveway as well.
There's some pretty distinct tread marks that are different. Like these don't look the same as those.
These were oversized tires, looked like performance tires.
See, like these two look different than these two. Looks like a Subaru Outback.
That one looks like it.
Yeah, this is where that's a peel out. And then blood.
We looked at the residence's vehicles to see what type of tires they had on their vehicles to see if it matched the tire wear impressions that we were noticing. They did not match any of the vehicles that the residents had there, so not any normal traffic that would be coming and going from that driveway. While the crime scene was being processed, detectives began to speak to the residents to see if they had seen anything suspicious.
I came out because I like to get the penny little sticks and I don't know.
Just something to do, get out.
Well,
yeah.
I just, like.
Did you look out and see the car?
Yeah, a lady was driving. The door was open. There was a man lying on the ground, face up. He was alive. And she said, oh, well, he's okay. We're going to get him back in the car. In the meantime, Bob and I were having dinner, and he didn't like for me to leave in the middle of dinner. So he came out, and he said, get back in here. We're having dinner. And so I just left.
So when I speak to a 911 caller, and this one in particular, I know that she's an older lady. So I work with what she said. It's her truth. I have to listen to it.
So what man lying on the ground? How far did you walk down there?
Not very. See that sort of big tree there?
Yeah.
In fact, that's about where that body was, that man was. He was alive.
You clearly see it was a male, though?
Yes, and he was alive. He seemed okay.
Her statement about the night before further corroborated what we were seeing in front of us, was that something had happened in the driveway and that it was presumed that he had been rolled into the woods or shoved or drug into the woods from the driveway. Patrol officers began going house to house to house in order to try and get as much information as possible.
So that's kind of been my job, is to canvass the neighborhoods. You don't happen to have any cameras or anything faced towards the roadway?
I do not. I heard that there was the body found right over there.
Yeah, so we're trying to see if any cameras heard like a gunshot of any kind or something.
So after gathering those statements, we began to canvass the area for cameras, Ring doorbell cameras, anything that can lead to maybe recording of what happened. But unfortunately, they don't capture what happened, and a lot of them, they don't pay their subscription for it to hold on to the data or the video recording of the incident, and that is exactly what happened during this case. None of the cameras captured anything.
At that point in time, we had very limited information. We had the victim identified as Mario Miller. We did not know how he had gotten there, what vehicle he had arrived in, who else might have been with him, and so at that point in time, we had nothing, essentially. It's pretty frustrating to not know anything. We only had the identification of the victim, Mario Miller, and a general time frame from a witness, and other than that, there was no other information of why or how this had actually occurred. It was quite the whodunit at that point. After we had the victim identified as Mario Miller, we had his home address identified. Detectives began going to that residence to see if we could make contact with anyone that was there. At that time, we did not know exactly where the crime had even been committed. As far as we knew, it could have been committed at the house, and then Mr. Miller was later transported and dumped to where we had found him. When we arrived at the house, there was no one there. The front door was unlocked. There was a work van parked in front of the residence. And then a car pulled into the driveway and a woman got out, and she was very upset that officers were inside of her residence. She identified herself as Savannah and further explained that she was Mario's girlfriend. She was caught off guard that we had been inside of her residence. However, she was a little bit more understanding once the circumstances were explained to her.
We are working a death investigation.
Okay.
And I going to tell you that Mr. Miller, Mario, he's found deceased today. And that's why we're here right now. I'm sorry.
Initially, when we made contact with her, we did explain to her that Mario was deceased, that we were treating it as a homicide investigation. However, we were very specific about what information we gave because at that point in time, anybody is a suspect.
So is it a car accident, foul play? What are y'all trying to...
Right now, I can't go into too much details because it is an open investigation, but it is being investigated as foul play.
We did ask about the van that was parked out front. She explained that that was for Ace Class, where Mario was employed. But she said that his everyday drive vehicle was a black Dodge Challenger. She said it was his prized possession. And so after Savannah had described Mario's vehicle to us, it did make a little bit more sense, the tire tracks that we had seen in the driveway. At that point in time, we had his vehicle description, and we knew that it was missing. A bolo was issued for that make, model, as well as the license plate, so that if it was run anywhere in the country, it would show as a stolen vehicle.
As an investigator, if I hear that the decedent's prized possession is missing, that immediately is a red flag to me. If their pattern of life is different than normal, that's a clue to something is wrong.
At that point in time, again, without knowing the motive for the killing, finding his vehicle could lead us back to who was responsible for his death.
His vehicle missing, the timeline is also very important to me. I need to know when the decedent was seen alive last.
Asking Savannah exactly when the last time she had seen him was important, because at that point in time, we knew that he had been murdered the night before in an approximate time span, and we had to fill in the time gaps of exactly where he was in between when Savannah last saw him and when he was found deceased.
He wakes up earlier before I do, so he's usually going to work at the gym about 5:30.
When he goes to the gym, what's his usual attire for the gym?
It's usually a muscle shirt, a white muscle shirt, and some shorts, Nikes.
White, black?
Different colors.
We did find it very odd that she said that he wore a very specific shoe every day to the gym, and that we did not locate any of those shoes with him at the scene. At that point in time, anything would have been an option to of exactly why he wasn't wearing shoes.
I usually wake up about 6:04. I go to work.
What time did you get back home?
It was about 6 something, and he still wasn't here.
So with him not being there, that wasn't super out of the ordinary because he might have been at the gym?
I go to bed early, about 8:30, 9, in bed, sleep. Wake up, notice he's still not there. So I call him, I'm like, nobody answered. So I'm like, at this point, I'm pissed.
Savannah did tell investigators that she was frustrated that she had not been able to speak to him that night. But I think the biggest key information that Savannah did give us was that she told us that before the homicide, she had overheard Mario with whom she believed was a female, and that maybe that they were intoxicated, but she did not know who he was speaking to or what the conversation was about.
Like a day or two ago, he was on the phone late at night with a female, but he claimed that his sister was at a party.
If Mario was having an affair with another woman, it could have been jealousy, and it would have been one of those motives that we would have looked a little bit harder at Savannah with. However, the fact that she was also telling us that he was very private and secretive with his phone, that he had a conversation and she didn't know who he had been speaking to earlier, just made me want to get his phone records more than anything at that point in time. So when we started questioning Savannah about any of Mario's friends or associates, she said that she didn't know any of his friends, but she did mention one man whom she only knew as Duke.
I don't know too much about him.
Is that his real name or a nickname?
I think it's a nickname.
Is he white male, black male?
Black.
It is pretty frustrating when all you have is just a nickname, but a nickname is still better than nothing, and what we had at that point in time was not very many known associates or friends, so having the name of Duke was at least something to work on. Detectives spoke to all of Mario's co-workers on the phone, and one of the supervisors was able to identify Duke as Marcelo. So it's important at that point in time to speak to any of Mario's friends. We needed to speak to his friend Marcelo, and hopefully he would give us more information of exactly why and who had killed Mario Miller. We had identified Mario's close associate as Marcelo. We're able to locate him and convince him to come to the police department to speak to me.
Just go ahead and have a seat there on that chair on that left. I'll be right back with you just a second.
My approach with Marcelo was to treat him as an excellent witness. I still believe that he was involved in Mario's murder in one way, shape, or form. However, I had no evidence to prove that.
Can you give me some history between the two of you? Like, how'd y'all meet?
I was homeless.
Okay.
I was homeless. I started working for 8th class. Mario was working at the company. Me and Mario became really, really tight when he convinced me and helped me.
When he was describing his relationship with Mario, he made it sound like Mario had taken him from being in a very bad spot and given him a career, a job, income, and actually really helped him out like a true friend.
You said he's your boy. You said y'all were tight. Y'all been together a
Mario
while.
done more for me than I've done for him. You know what I mean? Mario helped a lot of people, man.
It was very strange that Marcelo would refer to himself as being extremely close friends with Mario, but Savannah have very little knowledge of exactly who he is or what their relationship was. While speaking to Marcelo, and I could tell that he was lying to me, I finally just asked him point blank, what do you think happened to him? Who do you think would have done this to your friend? And if you know who it is, you should tell me.
What do you think happened to Mario?
Oh, man. First I thought it was carjacking.
Do you think somebody would want to jack him for that car?
Yeah.
The only motive that he could give me that he could think of was that it was a carjacking. And that was the only motive that he would give me. So I did find it very strange that he went immediately to that as his response, instead of thinking, well, you know, he's been in an argument with so-and-so, or it could have been this person. However, he went immediately to, it could have been a carjacking. I was hesitant to let him go. However, given that I didn't believe he was being 100% truthful with me, I knew where he was, and I knew I could come back to him at a later time. Then several days later, Savannah had called the police department to say that Marcelo had gone over to Savannah's house to talk to her to try and figure out what had happened to Mario, and was looking for things. She said that he began searching in the bedroom as well as searching in the garage. So she became very suspicious that Marcelo had information or knew a lot more than what he was telling detectives.
When I hear information like this, I start to think, how is this relevant to someone getting murdered? It's definitely suspicious.
We went back to Savannah's house. When we searched the house, we located a cell phone in the sofa. Savannah said Marcelo was sitting there, and that phone there between the seat cushions is not my cell phone. So at that point in time, I thought that that was Marcelo's phone. I wrote a search warrant for it, and I was able to determine that that was Marcelo's cell phone. We knew that we needed to speak to Marcelo again.
My dad showing me love and affection was more so showing up on birthdays, showing up for Christmas, just showing up. Him physically being there was enough for me, because I got to see siblings who didn't have a dad, and he would be that dad for them. So I have a lot of siblings who might consider him a dad because he just showed up for all of us. From the moment I found out about my daddy, about who could have done this, I mean, my mind spiraled, right? Because it was so random. I was questioning everybody, even family, because I didn't know.
So about a week later, myself and another detective went over to Marcelo's house, and he very cordially invited us in. When he sat down on the sofa, I could see the butt of the pistol sticking out from between the seat cushions. I believed that this pistol may potentially be the murder weapon, and so I asked Marcelo to come back to the police station for another consensual interview with me. During my second interview with Marcelo, he said that he didn't kill Mario, so I changed my line of questioning to find out more information about Mario's life. Marcelo did indicate to me that one of Mario's weaknesses was women. Mario had multiple children, I believe it was 7 children, that he was taking care of all of his kids, so he had to work particularly hard.
He got a lot of baby mamas.
I know.
Even working as much as he did, you still got a lot of mouths to feed.
They put him in the game. He loved that.
When Marcelo mentioned to me that one of Mario's weaknesses was women, it also reiterated what Savannah had said to me, that he was very private on the phone, that she was not allowed to ask where he was going or to see his cell phone or to know about his social media. So I had asked him specifically if there was a woman in particular that he knew about that he was hanging out with, had been dating on the side, if maybe he was having an affair with another woman or anything like that that would have given motive to his murder. He did not know at that time. I didn't believe he was being truthful with me because he was in possession of a gun, but we did get the results back from Marcelo's pistol. It was not the firearm that had killed Mario. Now that I've questioned Marcelo extensively, I was almost back to square one of, if Marcelo didn't kill Mario, then who did? I did not have any evidence to prove Marcelo was directly involved with the murder. So we were writing search warrants on Mario's and Savannah's social media accounts. We also requested a geofence warrant from Google. A geofence is essentially you give a latitude and longitude of multiple different points around the area where the crime had occurred. Approximately 4 months into the investigation, we got back the results of the geofence warrant. The results showed that on August the 11th, the day of the murder, at about 7:00 p.m., there was one device present at the crime scene that was not supposed to be there, and it wasn't Marcelo's. So this one device came back to a man named Stephen Rice. We needed to know who is Stephen Rice and why was he at the crime scene. Once we had Stephen Rice identified, warrants were written for his social media accounts. Then we were able to identify 2 other associates of Stephen Rice, Kashayla Hill and Devontae Herod. We were able to get enough probable cause to write search warrants on both Kashayla Hill and Devontae Herod's social media and phone numbers. We needed to know their personal connection to Mario. After reading the messages between Kashayla and Mario, I know that Kashayla and Mario had agreed to meet on multiple different occasions for sex. That gave me thought that maybe this sexual involvement could be a motive for why Mario had been killed. Then during the search of Kashayla Hill's Facebook account, I was able to see her conversations between she and Stephen Rice, between she and Devontae Herod. The picture that actually stood out to me the most was one that was dated 3 days prior to the murder of Kashayla holding a .22 Walther pistol. We knew that Mario was killed by a .22 caliber, and this picture put Kashayla Hill in possession of a .22 several days before the homicide. I also got Snapchat accounts for Kashayla, and there was one message between Kashayla Hill and Stephen Rice on the night of August the 11th saying, "Are you scared?" And approximately 1 minute later, the response from Stephen was, "I'm not scared, I'm just nervous." Approximately 1 more minute goes by, and Kashayla's response to Stephen was, "When we turn on this street, popping." When I read that, my thoughts were Kashayla is telling Stephen to kill Mario Miller.
We immediately searched pawn records, and we did find that Miss Hill had pawned the gun down in South Arkansas. So Detective Anderson and I went down and found the person that bought the gun.
After retrieving the firearm, the pistol was inspected and different swabs were taken for potential DNA evidence. These samples were sent to the crime lab. The results back from those swabs showed that the blood evidence on that pistol did belong to Mario Miller. That was a needle in a needle sack, and it was solidifying the case. that Kashayla Hill, Stephen Rice, and Devontae Herod were all involved in Mario Miller's murder. But what was the motive for the killing?
At this point in the investigation, we are very excited. So that's when we reach out to our partners, the U.S. Marshals, to actually locate them. Using social media and cell phone tracking, we found Mr. Rice and Miss Hill in Pine Bluff, Arkansas, and Devontae Herod was found in Memphis, Tennessee.
We traveled to Pine Bluff to interview Stephen and Kashayla, and the first person I interviewed was Kashayla.
Hey, I'm Detective Anderson. I work for the Fayetteville Police Department up in Fayetteville. But before I ask you any questions or anything like that, if you are under arrest, I need to make sure that you understand what your rights are. Okay? Are you all right?
I'm just confused. Like, what's going on? This is scary, and I really don't want to spend the night in jail. Hopefully, I don't have to stay here.
I understand.
I spoke to her at length just to get a feel of how truthful she was going to be with me.
Well, I'm really sorry to hear about that. Hope everything turns out okay. So, the murder that I'm working is with a guy named Mario Miller. Do you know anybody by that name? Have you ever heard that name?
Kashayla was very good at acting. She would play off very much that she didn't know what I was talking about.
Can you describe him so that maybe we're talking about the same person?
I mean, he's black. I think I was reading about him on the little website that's outside.
And after a while of her lying to me, I finally made the statement to her, I know that you know Mario. I know that you've had a relationship with Mario. Why won't you tell me exactly what your relationship was with him?
Okay. So when was the last time you talked to Mario?
Last time I talked to him, I can't give you the exact date.
Okay. You said that y'all hooked up.
Yeah.
So you didn't have sex with him, or you did?
No, I'm saying we did have sex, but I'm saying though the last time I talked to him, a couple times after, he kind of got mad. He's like, oh, what's wrong? Well, he got a boyfriend. I'm not supposed to be doing this anyway.
Right. Yeah.
So that's why I was just like, no, I can't do it.
Were you in love with him?
Yeah, I loved him enough to cry that he died.
Her response to me went from, I don't know a Mario Miller, to, yes, I know Mario, and I'm very upset that he's dead. I was in love with him, and I'm crying about this. But Kashayla told me at that time she was with Devontae Herod, that she was his girlfriend. At that time, I was believing that maybe Kashayla had told Devontae about Mario, and that Mario may have been killed because of it.
And
So you told Devontae about that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I talked about that. I was like, hey, Mom, I was like, man, this nigga tripping. Like, I didn't just tell him that he tried to rape me, and I didn't say he tried to force himself on me, but it was just like more like aggressive sexual.
Okay.
And he was like, so basically, he was like, so basically, what you telling me is, let him quit. And then he put his hands on me, like, he raped you, and I was like, no. He was like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I'm handling it. Then he was like, you shouldn't have you shouldn't have in my house anyway.
After speaking to Kashayla for an extended amount of time, we knew that Devontae was involved in the murder. We just didn't know the extent of his involvement in the murder, or how Stephen Rice was involved. But I knew Kashayla was a linchpin to all of this. So after speaking to Kashayla for 3 or 4 hours, I knew that she was starting to give me some more information. I felt like if we continued to speak to her and continued to press her, she would eventually tell us most of the truth about what had happened. We presented Kashayla with the Snapchat messages to Stephen Rice. Her explanation for them was that she and Stephen were talking about a video game that they like to play.
That's why I said it looks crazy when the message, because we was actually on the internet at the same time.
The hard thing for Kashayla to be able to get over evidentiary-wise was that we also had the geolocations of where they were specifically at the crime scene and when those messages were sent.
So when you're driving around with Steven, sending him Snapchat messages, why do you send a message to Steve saying, when we turn down this road, pop his ass?
When Kashayla realized that we had this evidence, she tried to throw the blame that Stephen had just murdered him.
And after Steve shot him, what happened?
At this point, she's realizing that she is going to prison for a long time. We have her. She's done. I don't believe the crying was because she loved Mario. I believe it's because she knows her life's over.
All of the evidence led to her being the mastermind for the entire thing. We knew that we needed to speak to Stephen Rice to get the full story.
In any interview, my main goal is I want to build rapport with anybody I'm interviewing. With Stephen Rice specifically, we are from two different worlds.
You mentioned the cold water too. Like I said, I'm not a Texas living, I don't pay no PD.
When I got in the interview room with Mr. Rice, he absolutely shocked me because I only asked a few questions and then he just started talking about the murder. To be honest, I wasn't prepared for that. I was prepared for a long interview, and then when someone just tells you the truth, it really throws you off and you have to adapt to that.
So when you did shoot him, how I mean, did like, you know, you shoot somebody going over 50 miles an hour, that's not going to be good. So tell me how that happened.
That's what I'm saying. It was fully stopped in the white lane driving.
Okay.
Fully stopped. Because, like I said, I had been trying to find it.
Then he told us that Kayshayla had devised a plan that she was going to contact Mario, have Mario come over to Devontae's house under the guise of picking her up, and that Stephen would be given a ride by Mario, and during that ride of giving Stephen a ride to his house, Stephen would murder Mario.
When Mr. Rice admitted to pulling the trigger, it made me feel odd because I'm looking at a person and I'm thinking, he doesn't think much about just killing a guy for someone else for some dumb reason. So I'm literally thinking, okay, this person is a psychopath.
Our other suspect, Devontae Herod, never confessed to actually being a part of the murder. Though I did not have any evidence to prove that he was directly involved with the murder, I was able to locate footage with Stephen and Devontae in Mario's vehicle months after the murder, and then a year after the murder, we got a notification from the Dallas Police Department that they had located Mario Miller's car abandoned in their city. I believe that on August 11th, 2020, Kayshayla Hill had used Stephen Rice and Devontae Herod to her advantage to murder Mario Miller, to both get some sort of retribution against Mario, maybe for his treatment of her, also of an easy score of a vehicle, potential money, and a way out of town. Later, I did find out that Marcelo had stolen a large amount of methamphetamine and had been arrested. But after going through all of the physical evidence as well as all the data that we had, we were able to confirm that Marcelo had no involvement in Mario Miller's homicide.
On February 29, 2024, Stephen Rice was sentenced to 36 years in prison for murder and tampering with evidence. Kayshayla Hill turned state's evidence and testified against Stephen Rice in the matter. She was sentenced to 40 years for accomplice to murder. Devontae Herod was sentenced to 15 years in prison for helping cover up the murder.
The essential mystery at the beginning of this was not even knowing who our victim was, not having any identification on him or any family to notify or any friends to talk to. And so starting from there to figure out who he was, how his life was, to ultimately who murdered him, I believe was quite an accomplishment for this department.
I do think about the pain that families go through. When you work an investigation like this, you get close with a family. At the end of the day, they're missing a loved one. So it hurts my heart that this happens, but it also gives me great pride to help give the family some closure.
I miss my dad. He was so funny. I just miss that laugh. The type of person he was, regardless of what was going on around him, he really didn't let his trials or his tribulations change who he was personally, as a human being, just as a person. So maybe he did find that joy. Maybe he did learn to be happy regardless of his circumstances. I'm sure he did.
They thought they buried the truth. In the dark, in the woods, in silence. But lies don't stay hidden. One by one, the pieces broke apart. And the truth found its way out. 3 people, 1 plan, 1 life taken. In the end, justice spoke.